Good morning, students. This is Dr. Kiran Deswal, Assistant Professor English, Government Bangalore College, Jitwana. In this video lecture, I will teach you the poem Preludes, composed by the great modern poet T.S. Eliot. Before beginning the poem, let us talk about the poem. Preludes is a poem by T.S. Eliot composed between 1910 and 1911. It is in turns literal and impressionistic, exploring the sordid and solitary existence of the spiritually moiled as they play out against the backdrop of the drab modern city. In essence, it is four poems rather than one, and it is duly labeled as such. Preludes come to just 54 lines, and its four parts are uneven. They are not equal, irregular, and written in free verse, symptomatic of the speaker's stream of consciousness. Part first is 13 lines, part second consists of 10 lines, part third 15 lines, and part 4 consists of 16 lines. The somewhat abstracted and fragmented description of preludes appears frequently in Eliot's poetry, and although it can be hard to discern the purpose of each individual image, they add up to a whole greater than the sum of its parts. The images in the first stanza of Preludes set the context for the rest of the poem, like grimy scraps of withered leaves, newspapers from vacant lots, broken blinds, and chimney pots are the dingy littered concrete objects of the city. They give us a picture of a dirty city. In the second stanza, the morning comes to consciousness of faint stale smells of beer, hangover, and the narrator thinks of all the hands that are raising dingy shades in a thousand furnished rooms. These last three lines underscore a sense of anonymity and insignificance in numbers, dirty vulgarity, and impermanence. The third stanza introduces the first actual character of the poem in the second person, implicating the reader in the grimy, low urbanity. The soul of this you is constituted of a thousand sordid images. And the soles of your feet are yellowed and your hands are soiled either by physical labor, the dirt and grime of the city, or both. The use of the second person here closes the distance between the poem and the reader, but the degrading accusatory manner in which it does so perhaps alienates the reader as well. The only redemption in the scene described is found in sunlight and bird song, which are both jarringly undercut. Light crept up between the shutters, and you heard the sparrows in the gutters. The light is not liberating and illuminating, it creeps and is obstructed. The bird song comes not from a traditional songbird but from sparrows, the mice of the bird world in the gutters of the street. So, the poem has been read as a condemnation of modernity and especially of urban life. It mainly highlights the boredom of life with allusions to prostitutes and other grimy scenes to further enhance the disorienting nature of the world in such a time. So let us come to our poem. It consists of four stanza, and we will begin the poem with the first stanza. In the very beginning, the poet gives a picture in words of a city, of a dirty city. It is the evening time. The winter evening settles down. It is evening time. The sun sets and night comes. And what happens when in evening comes? people start cooking their evening meal or evening or dinner with the smell of sticks in passageway. So people are cooking sticks. So there is a smell of sticks in streets. It is 6 o'clock and the day has its end, and it seems the burnt out ends of smoky days. Here we have a great simile. T.S. Eliot compares the uh, T.S. Eliot compares the end of the day with the burnt out end of a cigar, and he calls for the whole day people are busy in smoking, so the days are called as smoky days. Here we have personification. The day is not smoky, it is people who smoke during the day. And now, what happens? A gusty shower wraps, the wind is blowing, and a storm comes and it wraps the dirty. Grimy means dirty, scraps means newspaper scraps. It wraps the dirty scraps of withered leaves, of dry leaves around your feet. So it is very weird and odd feeling. And newspapers from vacant lots. Newspaper are also newspapers are also thrown by the wind from vacant lots. The showers beat on broken blinds. Rain starts and it showers beat the windows, which are called broken blinds. And chimney pots. It also hits the chimney pots and at the corner of the street. And what happens? There is a lonely cab horse at the corner of the street. The loneliness of that horse symbolizes the loneliness of the modern man. And the cab horse steams and stamps, and then the lightning of the lamps, and then the street lamps are lit. So it is a description of loneliness, of dirtiness of modern city. In the second stanza, what happens? Morning is always associated with freshness, but here we lack that freshness. The morning comes to consciousness of faint, stale smells of beer. When people get up in the morning, they don't feel fresh. Their the stale smell of beer comes from their mouth. From the sawdust trampled street in the from the dusty street, they go to the coffee shops with all its muddy feet that press to early coffee stands. People reach to coffee stands with the other masquerades that time resumes, and the day is prepared for the next drama, and which was paused during the night and it will be resumed again. One thinks of all the hands, and people are busy in doing their daily household chores. One can think of all the hands that are raising dirty curtains in 1,000 furnished rooms. In the third stanza, the poet describes a figure, most probably a prostitute. You tossed a blanket from the bed. She is not feeling sleepy, that's why she tosses the blanket from the bed. You lay upon your back. She is lying on her back and waited. She waits. You dozed. She dozes and watches the night revealing, and she watches that the night is revealing the thousand dirty images of which her soul is constituted, and those images flickered or flashes against the ceiling. And when all the world came back and the light crept up between the shutters, and you heard the sparrows in the gutters, morning comes and the sunlight creeps up between the shutters, and she hears of sparrows in the gutters. So here we have sunlight and the songbird, but the song is not pleasing, it also has become dirty. And you heard the sparrows in the gutters. You heard the song of the sparrow, the songbird in the gutters. You had such a vision of the street. The vision of the street is also not good, as the street hardly understand. The vision of the street, which is visualized by this figure, is also unknown by the street. Sitting alone the bed's edge. She is sitting alone on the edge. Again, we find that the modern man is suffering from loneliness. Where you curl the papers from your hair, and she is curling the paper from her hair, or claps the yellow soles of it, and she is clutching her yellow soles in her hands, in the palms of both soiled hand, and the hands are soiled, it is dirty. So this is the third stanza, which also describes the dirtiness of the modern people. In the fourth stanza, T.S. Eliot describes that uncertainty is there in the life of a modern man. His soul stares tight across the skies. The man who is sitting, it may be a cafe or it may be a restaurant, and the man who is coming, who is sitting, his soul is fixed across the skies that fade behind a city block, and the sky is not visible, it is hiding behind a city block. That means sky is always associated with hope, and the modern man has lost its hope, or trampled by insistent feet. It seems like sky is trampled, hopes are trampled, hopes are destroyed. At 4 and 5 and 6 o'clock, the life of a modern man is always uncertain. He just counts the time. It's 4, 5, and 6. There is just boredom and short square figures stuffing pipes. The man is smoking the pipe, and evening newspapers, and he is reading the evening newspaper just to pass the time, and his eyes assured of certain certainties. The conscience of a blackened street is in his mind, impatient to assume the word. He is impatient to assume the word. He cannot assume the word which he is visualizing in the newspaper. So the poet says that I am moved by fancies. The poet is moved by these fancies that are curled around these images, which are described in the previous stanzas, and cling the notion of some infinitely gentle, infinitely suffering thing. He finds out that modernity or humanity is suffering from some infinite thing. This suffering is infinite. So he says that wipe your hand across your mouth and laugh. The worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. Thanks.